If there is one thing that the Pokemon Direct has taught us, and that is for all of us veteran players, or even new players, we have grown an awful lot. We have evolved with our Pokemon. We are what we are today because of the Pokemon series. And oh boy did that Pokemon Direct tickle the nostalgia senses. As I mentioned in my last video, I still remember when Pokemon Red and Blue came out back in 1996, or I do believe 1997 in Australia. I still remember playing Pokemon Stadium for the very first time, and I still remember the shelves being stacked with Pokemon merchandise from one side of the shelf to the absolute other. It was like Pokemon Mania when it was first out, and it just kind of died over the years. But our strength as Pokemon trainers has yet to die as it has evolved over the years. 20 years have passed, and this is where we are today, with the announcements of Pokemon Sun and Moon finally confirmed. Oh my sweet mother of mercy. See, I'm that hyped up, it's amazing. But at the same time with the Pokemon Direct, there is still many questions yet to ask and have not been answered. Like, for example, is this still a 6th generation game, or is this indeed the way they hyped it up to be a 7th generation game? And I will get on to that as well. So basically this video is going to be about pretty much what the Pokemon Direct was about, all of my speculations and thoughts on this particular teaser ad, because let's face it, it was only a teaser ad that pretty much was there to hype us all up and get on that hype train. Choo choo, it has indeed left the station. Oh my lord, there's as I said, there are so many questions left unanswered. Hopefully we get another ad sometime soon that does explain a few questions, answers a lot of our questions, and explains a few things to clear us up on this. Alright, so let's start off with the main question. Is this going to be a 6th generation game, or is this going to be a 7th generation game? Well, that's the thing. The way they hyped it up in the Pokemon Direct, I keep saying Nintendo Direct, Pokemon Direct, they really did hype it up the way it was going to be another gen. I think one point a lot of people may not have noticed was they only mentioned the main series games. There was no mention of the remakes, there was no mention of Yellow, there was no mention of Crystal, no mention of Emerald, etc. There was only the main title games, which does make it sound like it's going to be a 7th generation game. But as I've already brought up in 2 podcast type videos, we have yet to had some events. We have not had Volcanion, we have not had AZ's Floatet, we have not had the Zygarde forms, which they did hype up quite a lot when that was announced. We also had Ash Greninja, but a lot of people reckon that's still going to remain anime exclusive. But as I've already mentioned as well, they may bring that back as a type of game thing, since Greninja has a bit of a cult following, kind of the same like Mewtwo and Charizard, so that's also a thing as well. So yeah, that's the thing. They still have it up in the air. Is this 6th generation or 7th generation? And while I'm on the topic of 7th generation possibilities as well, near the end of the ad, they did show what I originally thought was a fletching, but it turned out when I had another look, it is indeed not a fletching, but it's going to be most likely the Route 1 bird, which looks, as I said, quite like a fletching, and it's quite interesting that it looks very similar. But as I said, it could well be a 7th generation Pokemon. However, it could well still be a 6th generation Pokemon. But again, I'll move on to that that theory in just a little bit. Alright, so let's go through a few things that were shown in the actual ad in regards to Pokemon Sun and Moon. And I still can't believe that was confirmed after a leak. Usually most of the leaks are false, but this particular leak is, wow, it's real, unreal. So anyways, let's start off, as I said, with some stuff related to Pokemon Sun and Moon. So the first image I've got up on the screen is just basically going through some concept art. So we got a lot of random concept art here in regards to buildings and features. It's quite hard to say what they're going to be, but one of them does look like a Pokemon Center of some sorts. It really does remind me of one of the Pokemon Centers from the anime a little bit. The Charmander episode where they're in that Pokemon Center, it's all brown and all that. But again, I could be wrong there. There's also another part there that actually kind of reminds me of secret base from Oris, but at the same time, upon further looking at it, like it's a little bit blurred because it's right up the top there. It might actually, in fact, be a Pokemon Center, but as I said, because of how blurry it is and because it's quite out of focus, it's hard to tell if it is going to be a Pokemon Center or not. So yeah, as I said, it's quite hard to really get anything from these concept images because they're quite brief in their information, like they're kind of just focusing on particular objects rather than an entire room on itself. Alright, so let's move on to the next image, which, I don't know, like, it could well be a Pokemon Center concept art, but at the same time, I'm kind of getting a Pokemon gym feeling from it. Like, it's got the Pokeball in it, and I know the building's red, which usually means Pokemon Center, but there's like a little blurry image just to the right there, which usually only pops up when you go up against major trainers like the Elite Four or a gym leader, so that could be a thing as well. Like, it's got everyone else blurred out, but the particular trainer you're versing is indeed highlighted there, which, as I said, it kind of brings me back to when you versed the Elite Four in Oris and X and Y. They had that whole grey out thing, and the particular trainer you're versing was coloured. So that's what's made me thinking this is actually a Pokemon Gym concept art rather than a Pokemon Center. And again, they've kind of got the blurred Pokemon Center, I'm pretty sure Pokemon Center image just to the left there as well. But again, because it's not really focused on that particular image and it's a little bit blurred, again, it's hard to tell. But there's also like an image there that's been cropped off that kind of does look like it's going to be inside a Pokemon gym of some sorts, but as I said, that's kind of speculations. Like, it could be a Pokemon gym, it could well be a Pokemon Center, just keeping to the whole red buildings is the Pokemon Center. And again, are they going to do what they did originally, and that was have the Pokemon Centers and Pokemon Mart in one building, or are they going to go back to the whole Pokemon Mart being another separate building and Pokemon Center being its own building as well? So if that's going to be the case, then maybe the original images we saw in the last image could well be just a combination of Pokemon Center and Pokemon Mart as well. And I'm kind of hoping they do bring that back, because it was quite convenient and I didn't have to go looking for a Pokemon Mart as well in the same city. Alright, so that's pretty much it for that image, and we now move on to this really, really interesting concept art. And that's going to be a whole bunch of vehicles. So we've got like, sorry, I'm not really a car fanatic, and a car to me is just a car. Like, I don't usually go by names, but a lot of them look like, I guess, Jeeps of some sort. There's even like, looks like a construction or an emergency car or something, kind of like a firefighter truck or something. And there's also portable RVCs as well. I think that's what you call them, RVCs. As I said, not a car fanatic, everything's just a car to me. So yeah, the other interesting fact I've got to take away from this is in the back of the Jeep-like car, as I said, it's a car to me. We got a Furfrou, a Wofferbeth, and a what looks like a Maid Choke or a Maid Champ sitting in the back there as well. And at the front there, it looks like a trainer and someone driving them around, which is really interesting. And you also see there that Jeep comes in like green or lime green, white, and red as well. And moving down to what I do believe is a fire truck, because it's got the emergency lights on it, it's yellow to make it really stand out, and the fact that the Blastoise is sitting in the back of it. I mean, from what I can remember of the anime, they do feature like the Squirtle Squad being a firefighter, and there is a Blastoise in the Johto region, I do believe. So, are they going to have like emergency services? Like, are they going to have ambulances with Chanseys in it? And I do, but like, now that I've said that, actually, I now think that the van-like thing is actually an ambulance. Does that mean there's going to be Chanseys in them, or Dinos, or something like that, or Blissies? Like, that is actually now really cool now that I think about it. Are they going to introduce emergency service? So are they going to be like natural disasters or something, or can Pokemon get hurt and you have to call for an ambulance or something? Now that kind of sounds realistic and it kind of scares me a little bit. But it's still actually a really interesting thought now, like, about Pokemon being like firefighters and Chansey, Blissey, and Ordino being actual nurses. So that might mean that I think they mentioned somewhere in Mystery Dungeon that Nurse Joy, or even in the anime, as I said, I haven't really watched the anime that much, that Nurse Joy actually do go out in the wild and heal injured Pokemon. So maybe this is going to make a reference back to that fact. So maybe the ambulance does go out into the wild and heals up injured wild Pokemon or something like that, or Pokemon trainers that can't get back to the town or something, and they just send them out there to help rescue them or bring them back to the town or city. It's still pretty interesting, just the whole fact that they're introducing vehicles, and they seem to be playing quite a major role because there's quite a lot of concept art with vehicles in them. Alright, so moving on to next concept art. So again, there's like another picture, the very first picture on the left there. There is actually a vehicle parked in a parking bay, and it kind of looks like it's going to be like a bit of a shopping district or something. Like, I don't know, the big sign there kind of looks like it's going to be a shopping district of some sort. And again, there's like a concept art of inside a building or something. It's hard to tell there, and again, blurred off again because someone's arm's in the bloody road. Good job. Which is probably meaning it's going to be some type of major spoiler if they didn't do that. There's going to be like some buildings there, and then again more concept art of what looks like inside the buildings. And then there's another interesting thing here. We got this screenshot, and the next image I'll bring up again is like the bigger screenshot of that particular screenshot, and that is what looks like possibly a gym of some sort. And originally I thought, just going along like the idea that they were going to make Kanto into a 3D thing, and I was thinking originally this was like Cerulean Gym of some sort. But again, it could well just be a water type gym, but they've just done it really fancy. And it's just funny that the trainer icon actually does look like red. I don't know if anyone else thought that was pretty weird, but again, it's just concept art, so it could just well be concept art as a placeholder for the trainer that we'll be getting in Pokemon Moon and Sun. So I actually thought this was just really interesting, like just bringing my mind back onto Cerulean Gym. We had the Horsey at the front, we got the Staryu, we got a Chinchou and a Spheal there on the walls. And just the fact that there's like a water fountain at the front and water Pokemon on the walls of the building kind of leads towards the whole idea it will be like hopefully a Kanto remake, which would be really cool for a 20th anniversary. I did bring that up actually. But just in case it's not, I will say it probably will be the water-type gym featured in Pokemon Moon and Sun. And it actually is a really interesting idea. I mean, if they're going to do it this detailed for 7th Gen, this is going to be absolutely amazing. And as I've already mentioned, we already do have the new, what looks like the new first route bird-type Pokemon, which, as I mentioned, was kind of brought my mind onto Fletching. From Pokemon X and Y, which originally made me think this was going to be a 6th generation remake. But again, so far from the way they're hyping it up, it sounds like a 7th generation game. I kind of hope they're not doing that as a way of making the hype train zoom off into light speed. That would be kind of a disappointment. But again, it's the whole idea that the 6th generation Pokemon could well make a transition into 7th gen. As a way of keeping the storyline going. As I said, it's a bit weird with the whole unreleased events going. As I've already mentioned though, they could very well do those events before the new games do get released at the end of 2016, which has been the announced estimated date of release. So that's going to come around soon, quicker than we all know about it. God, that's going to be amazing. So yeah, like as I said, it's still up in the air if this is going to be a 6th generation game or if these Pokemon are going to be the next half of the 6th generation Pokemon that we did not get. I do believe we had a total of 72 Pokemon in total, not including the Mega Evolutions from 6th generation. So it was indeed a very small generation. And at the same time, as I mentioned in the last video, it was extremely short. Like, it just kind of cut off. And I know they kind of like wrapped it up completely with AZ moving on. They got the AZ's Flotet, and Team Flare looked like they died in like the whole disaster that went down. And then we kind of moved on to Oris, where the whole Project Azoth kicked off there as well, with Team Magma and Team Aquid wanting to go ahead with that plan as well, and with Devon Co-op as well having the same energy to do the same things, yada yada yada. It just seems really interesting. Like they kind of went, kind of brought the whole storyline from Pokemon X and Y into Oris. So if that is indeed the end of 6th generation, then by God, that was a very short storyline with a very dismal aftergame too on X and Y. So as I said, like I'm not going to be disappointed if it is 7th generation or if it is indeed another 6th generation sequel. It is a new game. That's something to be excited about. And still, we've survived for the veteran players, we have survived 20 years. We are indeed old. oh god, there was like another thing I was going to talk about. Oh, that's right. The location of the Pokemon games. Like, at the moment, this is a train of thought just going along the lines of the 6th generation sequels, and the fact as well that there's a lot of cars featured as well. And the first thing that came to mind was actually Switzerland. A few people pointed out to me, though, there is palm trees featured in one of the concept arts. But from what I can remember, there are some palm trees in certain parts of Switzerland, like in the Swiss Alps, I do believe. So it's not entirely out of the option. But at the same time, Switzerland does have a bit of a car culture in regards to like an annual car show. And they're like crazy about cars, and they are, I think, as I said, this is coming from someone who's not very knowledgeable on cars. I do believe they do manufacture quite a few cars over in Switzerland as well. And the other few options of people have pointed out to me, and again, this was in a theory as well of mine after I did that video, that Italy or Greece could even still be an option as well. Italy just seems a little bit out of the question for me though, because Italy, most of the time it's through boat travel, because it's like water everywhere, and through little scooters as well, and then that kind of doesn't work in with all the cars unless they're traveling outside of Italy, like little cities and all that around them. As for Greece, I'm not really too sure how you travel in Greece. Like, I'm not really knowledgeable in my geography at all, as you can probably tell. I've probably already said a few fibs, and I'm going to get probably told off in the comment section. But as I said, feel free to kind of expand on that, because my geography is absolutely terrible. So I don't know, this is just coming from like my speculation, and so again, none of this is indeed factual, and indeed can be expanded on the comic section. So another thing I did notice from the Pokemon Direct was this game is indeed going to be compatible with Pokemon X and Y and Oris, but again, it'll probably play by like how we have Kalos rules. So if you're playing Oris, you can't use the new Pokemon up against a Kalos player. So indeed, that'll probably happen with Pokemon Moon and Sun. Like, we'll be having to play by Kalos rules and the Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire rules, which will most likely happen, or the Hoenn rules that they'll probably call it. So yeah, that will most likely be compatible from what I kind of gathered from the Pokemon Direct. If not, then they'll be probably transferred through the Pokebank function. Also on the topic of Pokebank as well, they did mention as well in the Pokemon Direct that the Virtual Console games, Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow and Green, can indeed transfer Pokemon through Pokebank. So we'll now be able to get like Fissure, Machamp onto 6th generation. How bloody scary is that? I do believe Machamp's Fissure No Guard is going to get automatically banned in single battles, and maybe indeed get banned in VGC. Or Sturdy Pokemon are just going to make a huge ride, and so is Focus Ash. So yeah, we're getting all these interesting moves now thanks to that whole option of transferring Generation 1 Pokemon. So now I'm just holding out for Generation 2 being available on Virtual Console to do the same thing. Alright, so I can't really think of anything else. Like, I think I pretty much covered the entire Pokemon Direct, and at the same time I do apologise for not using any actual video footage in this. I don't really want to deal with Nintendo at this point in time. Not fun at all, and yeah, we all know about the Nintendo stuff with YouTube. It's just entirely BS. So anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this little speculation thing from me. As I said, I really can't give you guys anything else but speculations at this point in time, as it was only a teaser ad. So hopefully in the next week or so, Game Freak comes out and does give us an official trailer to work by. And as always, I will jump on that and do an analysis video or a speculation video in regards to that as well. Also, another thing before I sign off, Magina will most likely be an event Pokemon. I'm throwing that out there now, so I'll cover more of that in details for a Trivia Tuesday podcast. But for now, just keep that in mind that Magina will most likely be an event Pokemon. So until the next video, this is Lady KrimZen saying ciao for now, but not forever. Ciao!